Hi everyone, 2025 is coming to its end, and in this year, one important subject emerged in the Tamil struggle. Our beloved Tamil activists were very loud as the hype was up, and as the hype took a dive, they chose another subject to focus on.
I don't want to play with you anymore.
The topic I'm talking about is the Somani mass grave. And today's video is a summary of what happened this year related to the Somani mass grave. So let's dive into this. The Germany mass grave is located in Yalpanam, also known as Jaffna. To this date, the Germany mass grave is the second biggest mass grave on the island of Ulam. To understand it, we have to travel back to a time where tigers used to walk on 2 feet on this godforsaken island. Yalpanam is the birthplace of the Tamil militancy and was also a stronghold of the tigers. But this changed in December 1995 as Sri Lankan troops captured Jaffna. It was the first time since 12 years as Sri Lankan troops controlled Jaffna since the beginning of the Ulam Wars. As the Sri Lankan troops returned, hundreds of Tamils started to disappear. No one knew what happened to them, but one incident shed a light what may have happened to them. On the 7th September in 1996, Krishanti Kumarasamy, a 18-year-old student, went missing. She was last seen at a Sri Lankan army checkpoint. Her mother, her brother, and a neighbor went to the same checkpoint in search of her. They went missing too. Some days later, 4 bodies were found in Germany near the Sri Lankan army camp. Krishanti's mother and her neighbor were found strangulated, while Krishanti's and her brother's body were found dismembered. After public outcry, 9 Sri Lankan soldiers and policemen were arrested. It came to light that Krishanti had been gang raped before being killed. 5 Sri Lankan soldiers and a policeman were sentenced to death, and 3 Sri Lankan soldiers received a sentence of 20 years. After the verdict, one of the sentenced soldiers, named Somaratna Rajapaksa, claimed that he was innocent and that he only buried the bodies. He further stated that every evening dead bodies were brought and the soldiers were ordered to bury them. He also knows the whereabouts of 300 to 400 buried bodies in Germany, and that he can identify 16 burial sites. Therefore, in June 1999, Somaratna Rajapaksa was brought to Jaffna. There he identified one site. In the following months, 15 bodies were uncovered. But in December 1999, the Sri Lankan government announced that there was no mass grave located in Germany as alleged by Rajapaksa. And soon, in the following chaotic decade, the Germany mass grave issue was forgotten. And in February 2025, during construction work in Germany, one human remain was found, and the Germany mass grave issue became the center of attention again. On the 15th May, the first phase of the excavation work started in Germany, but 2 days later, the work was temporarily halted because of heavy rainfall. The work resumed on the 2nd of June again and ended on the 7th of June. And in total, 19 human remains were found during the first phase of the excavation work. On the 23rd of June, a 3-day vigil named Aneyavilakku was organized by the Tamils, and on the last day, the Human High Commissioner for Human Rights, Volker Türk, visited the Germany, and other politicians who wanted to visit the site were chased away by the protesters. The first stage of the second phase of the excavation work started on the 26th of June, and it ended on the 10th of July because the excavation workers needed rest. The Sri Lankan government had allocated 11.7 million rupees for the excavation works, but they also transferred the responsibility for the site from the police to the CID. Till now, 72 human remains were found. The second stage of the second phase for the excavation work was started on the 21st of July. While this was going on, the excavation team wanted to use a GPS scanner for the work, but the Sri Lankan Defense Ministry didn't sanction it. Therefore, the University of Jaffna asked the University of Sri Jayewardenepura for its GPS scanner, and on the 4th of August, it was used during the excavation work. On the next day, on the 5th of August, 54 items like school bags, shoes, or feeding bottle for babies that were found during the excavation works in Zemuni were publicly exhibited for the relatives of the enforced disappeared, who could identify them. The Tamil MP Kajendra Kumar Ponnambalam claimed that the CID were stationed at the gate of the exhibition that was intimidating to the relatives of the enforced disappeared. He further claimed that the secretary to the Minister of Justice was in direct contact with the excavation workers and was interfering with their work. And on the 7th of August, the second stage of the second phase concluded, with 147 human remains being found. On the 14th of August, the Someni mass grave case was inquired at the Jaffna Magistrate Court. There, soil samplings and the findings of the GPR scanners were submitted, and the court ruled out that additional 2 months of excavation works were needed to the already sanctioned 45 days for the second phase. On the 22nd of August, the third stage of the second phase started. While this was going on, the Sri Lankan president visited Jaffna on the second day of September. Before his visit, some ministers claimed that the president will visit the Someni mass grave site, but the president only passed through with his vehicle without getting out. And one day after his visit, the judge Anandaraja, who was overseeing the excavation work, received a promotion, and because of this promotion, he can't oversee the excavation work anymore, and therefore a new judge named Lenin Kumar was appointed. But on the 6th of September, the third stage of the second phase of the excavation work concluded, with 240 human remains being identified in these 2 phases alone. For the third phase of the excavation work, 18 million rupees were needed, and the request for it was submitted on the 18th of September, but the Sri Lankan government only sanctioned it in the last phase of October, when it was too late to start the excavation work because of the rain season that had started. As a team, including the judge Lenin Kumar, visited the Someni mass grave site on the 3rd of November, the excavation site was already flooded by rainwater. Therefore, it was decided to check out the site on the 19th of January again. On the 7th of November, one of the 2 medical examiners who were working on the Someni excavation was fired. The Sri Lankan president announced in the parliament that the government had done a great job in the investigation of Someni. Additionally, a statue that was built by the protesters of the Anaya Blöcke campaign was damaged on the 8th of December. It's noteworthy that the statue was already damaged in October. Dragging an issue out is a typical procedure of the Sri Lankan state when it comes to Tamil issues. Meanwhile, the cyclone Ditwa is a good excuse for the Sri Lankan state to further dragging this out. Also, one judge and 1 medical examiners who were familiar with this issue will not be working in the future anymore, and the CID has already started to intimidate Tamil political activists in the homeland. A person familiar to me, who was active in the Anaya Blöcke protests, was targeted by the CID. His relatives were visited by the CID, and they were asked about his whereabouts, and the CID claimed that this person wanted to revive the LTTE. And additionally, the Sri Lankan state is also putting the focus on another mass grave, and it's the mass grave in Kalavanchikudi that is related to the Kurukkalmadu massacre. In the Kurukkalmadu massacre, the LTT is accused to have killed some members of the Muslim community.
What about the people he murdered? What murder?
It looks like Sri Lanka wants to even out the Someni mass grave issue with multiple tactics, and a lot of younger Tamils have been politicized through the Gaza genocide and through the Someni mass grave issue. And the only question remains is if these Gen Z Tamils and the general Tamil community is ready to face the new challenges coming ahead.
First time.
Thank you very much for your attention. Please leave a like or a comment in the comment section, and I wish you a nice day.